Hello, everybody. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to my guest, Brittney S. She was very gracious to meet with me, and please go check out the Celebration Theater. They're doing some amazing work, and I'll be putting a link to We See You White American Theater in the video. So let's get started. All right. Hello. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Gabe Zuniga. My pronouns are he, him, his, and today we have a incredibly special guest to talk to. She is the Associate Artistic Director at the Celebration Theater in Los Angeles, Brittney S. Wheeler. Brittney, thank you so much for meeting with me to talk.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I wanted to meet with you to talk about the document/campaign Dear White American Theater, which, in summary for those listening, is a document, part of a campaign, but we are looking at a document which lists the demands of BIPOC people in the theater world that are calling for a more anti-racist environment and are calling out the ways that white American theater has failed its BIPOC collaborators. Before I start my questions for the document itself, Brittney, I really wanted to get to know you and your a little more of your background with just your theater journey. I really wanted to hear any theater just leading up, any theater stories leading up to your position at the Celebration Theater, any moments of inspiration. I would love to hear.
Yeah, sure. So like a lot of, theater nerds, I've been doing theater since I was very small, and ended up going to Concordia in Irvine for my theater degree, BA. And then I'm currently getting my master's in theater right now over at CSUN in Northridge. But I started with Celebration at least about 10 years ago. We did the first regional production of The Color Purple. And I just almost missed the audition. I had actually had the date wrong.
Oh, wow.
I was on my way to Disneyland.
Oh.
And a friend of mine said, Brittney, the auditions for Color Purple are today. They're not next week. So I ran over there. And normally, I'd come completely prepared and everything, but I just had whatever I had in my car and the resume I had in my car, which was an old one. And I just went in there, and that was my first professional gig. So I've been involved with Celebration ever since. I was, regular company member. Then I moved up to our casting associate. So helping out our casting director with all of our musicals and plays and things like that. And then as of actually earlier this year, I was brought on to be associate artistic director. Mm-hmm. And my artistic director now, her name is Ann James, and we are the first Black queer women to head the organization. It's been around for 40 years, very historic. So that's kind of my story right now.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. My first question, I guess, regarding the document of We See You White American Theater is, when starting at Celebration Theater, did it become clear quickly that changes needed to be made, or did that sort of evil, for lack of a better term, creep its way out the more you had worked there?
It was more of, it was an existing issue that we had always wanted to conquer. Mm-hmm. And we honestly had been talking about, doing some real work in that area for a good while. Mm-hmm. And then unfortunately, when George Floyd was murdered, things kind of kicked into gear because we no longer, at least those of us that are BIPOC, felt like we no longer had that luxury of staying quiet. Yeah. And kind of staying neutral, I guess, to a certain extent, because, as you know, our lives are at stake. Yeah. So it was just imperative to, if we're going to spend all this time and effort and passion to be in the theater 24/7 like we'd like to be, let's make it a place where we can all grow together, and we can all, be one. Yeah. And just focus on the art. Yeah. Instead of getting, really distracted by outside forces, kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, one of the biggest things that comes up in the document of We See White American Theater is they bring up that we need more facilities like anti-racist support staff or BIPOC media marketing and PR. And those are like very essential things, and they're not hard things to accomplish. So my question is, if funds are not put into such essential facilities as that, where does that money go?
Honestly, I think sometimes the money will go to housekeeping things. So whether it is, paying the rent for the theater itself, the actual space. It can also be, to pay the artists that come in to design for us or to direct for us, to music direct. So a lot of times that's where that money goes, and if there's even money in the first place. So that's half the battle, really, is to actually have the funds in the first place to be able to even allocate them to the different areas, and especially something as critical, as those workshops and things like that. It can be difficult, but it's been really nice. We've been really lucky in terms of Celebration to have very, very generous patrons, as well as, the government saying, hey, we actually kind of want to keep the arts alive, because they saw how, during COVID and the lockdown, how it was, the arts world kind of almost collapsed in and of itself. And I think they're really starting to give us a lot more money, not just us, but, hundreds of others as well, because they actually kind of see the importance a little bit. I don't think we'll ever get the status that we should as an arts organization, and this is generalized, not just Celebration, that the U.S. doesn't necessarily look at the arts as something vital to our existence, and I think that's probably why there aren't resources like that, is because there simply isn't enough money to go around.
Yeah. And so I guess that's a pretty good segue into the next question. I mean, how do you think that Celebration has fought in the past year, or just in recent years in general, to achieve a more anti-racist environment?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is down to who we have in our actual company itself. So this isn't just the board or necessarily management. It's, the artists that we come across in doing our shows. Just like myself, a lot of us were former actors that had done one or two or three, shows with Celebration, and were brought on as company members from there. But I think it's also doing pieces where BIPOC people, especially queer BIPOC people, can be able to work and get roles that they normally would never be able to get, and more conventional regional houses. So that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves in doing, is we don't necessarily do traditional casting. So if we're doing cabaret, which we did a few years ago, very well done, very well reviewed. If we did that, and if the person that is, let's say, auditioning for one of the main female characters, if they're the best person for that particular role, then we choose them, no matter if she happens to be Asian, or in our case, she was African American. So we try to do that and give people that normally would not have the opportunity to play certain roles an opportunity to really stretch their talents and just thrive. That's kind of what we really are aiming for whenever we do a piece. Now, is it honoring our our mission as an organization, first of all, and also is it putting a spotlight on marginalized communities that need their stories to be told?
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going on to the last part. I wanted to look at one point in the document that really stood out to me personally. The document reads, "We resist paradigms of competition and scarcity, or the fallacy that our narratives must center on trauma." My question, basically, in dropping this idea, for my final question, in dropping this idea that all BIPOC stories must surround suffering and hardship, like, what do you feel excited for or proud of for the future of our beautiful Black, Brown, and Indigenous artists out there?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to not be the status quo. Now, a lot of it is, this is kind of our moment, and we've only got 5 minutes to really enjoy it. But I think, honestly, more and more, we're going to start seeing productions that aren't your normal production. Let's say a Beauty and the Beast. There's actually one going on right now where the Beast is actually an amputee, and Belle is actually a plus-size African-American woman. Wow. So I think, to be honest with you, I think it's an exciting time to not look like what everyone expects the ingenue to look like.
Yeah.
And what happened. So I think, while it might be a little bit of, we're just having our 5 minutes of fame right now because of Black Lives Matter and the election and all that kind of stuff. I think people are more interested in hearing the stories they never get to hear anymore. So it's the history of what has happened, but there's more to BIPOC people than our struggle.
Yeah. And
I think more and more we as BIPOC artists are demanding. What do they call it? They call it trauma porn. When it's like 12 Years a Slave or what have you. And people are so used to seeing, Black lives a certain way. And I think there are so many different communities and people that have these unbelievable stories that just need to be told. And I think we're going to see a big trend of just completely different programming in the theater. And it's exciting. It's exciting. I'm actually very curious to see, all over the country, all over the world, what people are going to be coming up with. Because if there's, however many millions and millions of people out here, that's how many wonderful stories that we can learn from,
Yeah. It's a renaissance.
Really, it is.
It's
really
amazing.
Is.
Yeah.
Out of that negativity and out of that strife and that pain and that hurt, I think is going to be a complete, like you said, a renaissance, the perfect word for it, of a brand new, exciting, but challenging work.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be, it's going to change lives. And it's very cliche to say, but I honestly think so many of us that never got the opportunity to play certain roles, to do certain things, are going to be able to, and might even be able to be paid a decent wage. So it's exciting.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brittney.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate your time, really appreciate hearing what you had to say. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime.